Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our on demand session. I'm Nivedita, and along with my colleague Pratik, together we represent Crossbow Labs. Crossbow Labs, which is the youngest new member of the GEAR committee, a record in itself. For a long time, we wanted to host one of those sessions where we could capture the certainties and uncertainties of human behavior and how they affect the payment ecosystem. And today that we are here, we would like to start by thanking the PCI Council for this amazing forum, event, and opportunity. You know what they say? They say it is not genius until the success is repeated. So here we are again after two successful sessions on ATM cash out and 8-digit PIN to present our most recent indulgence, as you can see on the screen, people in payments. We ensure that by the end of this session, you would be far more aware of the constituents of a payment ecosystem and some of the best practices that you can adopt as you go through.
So, we really thought through this and came to an understanding that humans could not have progressed without an organized and regulated payment ecosystem. And the same is true the other way around. In the era of evolving technologies and payment methods, we often neglect the people component. Despite all this, people are pervasive. As you can see on the slide, they may be in the form of giver or receiver, tech creator or automator. And how can we forget the defenders and the hackers? So, do you think we have a perfect ecosystem? I wish. However, there's always a weak link which needs to be analyzed further. Let me ask you this question. Which is this weak link in our payment ecosystem? Any guesses? Yes, you guessed it right. The people. So, we all need to look at security which is beyond devices and technologies. Let's look at what we have in store for today's session.
So, we intend to serve our audience's valuable time the next 20 minutes by carefully slicing this session into meaningful subsections. We'll begin by understanding the types of payments through human history, how it is done in the present times, and how would it be in the future. We'll also discuss the segments in our ecosystem, later touching briefly over the breaches, potential threats, vulnerabilities, and security measures. We'll finally conclude this session by giving our take on the future of people in payment ecosystem.
These are very interesting things coming up for our session. So let me get started with the various payment types. At the onset of human civilization, barter system was created to exchange goods and services. Then slowly, kingdoms and empires were formed who introduced coins. These kingdoms evolved into countries having their own national currencies and coins. These were the times when cash was the king. Now we have digital payments, which includes neobanks, payment card brands, service providers, merchants, etc., who come together to form a new payment ecosystem altogether. This is impressive progress, right? So then what is next in line? We all would have heard about cryptocurrencies as payment type, not only in the physical world but also in the virtual world, metaverse. Having understood that payment types, let's understand the various people segments that form our ecosystem.
The people segment in ecosystem. Are they just a cog in the wheel, running tirelessly day in and day out so that we can make smooth payments? What do you think? Are they just a cog in the wheel? Well, we'll move on with the silence for the time being for you to decide by the end of this session. But as you can see on this slide, the people behind the payment ecosystem can be roughly divided into 4 or 5 segments. Top left, you see users, consumers, and merchants like us. Top right, facilitators such as card brands, banks, governance, which sits on top to regulate the entire ecosystem. Technology segment, facilitating the development of applications and devices. And finally, security. Now, all these segments work in tandem and parallel so that when you press a button or swipe your card, the payment is made with the help of these people in the segments. Now, tandem and parallel is still fine, but there are always conflicts and imbalances which are resulting, and we'll see them, we'll look at them as we move. Any involvement or disruption in the payment ecosystem also can change rest of the ecosystem as well. So to maintain smooth payments worldwide and with so many people involved, obviously we need facilitators and regulators and also the security consultants. And all this eventually leads to a hierarchy. But who sits on top and who's been regulated, we'll see next.
Of course. But before we get into hierarchy, let us be clear that this is shown in the form of arrows is only indicative in nature. In our ecosystem, as you can see on this slide, the governance sits on the top of the chain and regulates the users, consumers, merchants. Then we have techs who develops applications and devices like POS. Then we have facilitators like card brands and banks. And finally, we have security people like CISOs and their information security team, the QSAs and the consultants who advises on how to secure payments. Apart from that, we have PCI SSC as a major contributor to the other entities as the various standards are used to help secure these channels in ecosystem. With this, I must say, efficient performance by each player, whether it is regulated or not, gives peace in payments and not pieces. By this, we mean stability is maintained in the payment ecosystem and is not disrupted by individual segments.
Now, through all the payment types, segments, hierarchy, through all these eras and eons, what do you think has been everlasting so far? It's the people. But are people even considered to be relevant? Not really. Let us see why.
If we look at the CIA triad, here we have a missing component, the people. Now, I do understand till now the payment ecosystem has thrived on the three main pillars: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But how can we miss the people in the CIA triad, which is the only component that has been constant from barter system to metaverse? So, should we still look at the same age old triad? Certainly not. With the current pandemic, we should consider the parameters which are above and beyond CIA.
Thank you very much for setting the context here because here we are looking at a concept which is bigger than trial. What do you think is important in any pandemic? It is people and their safety. Therefore, to keep the system moving, the most important parameter becomes people's safety and health. To preserve CIA, safety and health must become a part of this triad as we go through, thus making it as CIAS. Now, CIS has got wider definition which highlights the importance of roles and responsibilities and also ethicality. Rest, as you all know, confidentiality would always prevent information disclosure, integrity would always prevent alteration, and availability would prevent absence of information. But despite CIS, there are a lot of breaches and frauds which are happening.
What could be possible reason for such breaches? Have you ever come across a disgruntled employee? Let me tell you two noteworthy cases. One that happened in March 2019. An employee of a bank holding company illegally accessed one of the cloud servers storing company's data and stole 100 million credit card applications which were dating back to 2005. Similarly, another disgruntled employee in largest credit union gained unauthorized access to 4.2 million members' data with an intent to cause harm to the company. Because of the unauthorized access, confidential data became disclosed, integrity got compromised, and hence it became available to public as there were no proper safety measures implemented. So much so for breaches, frauds, and compromises.
So, the reason for these breaches, as you have seen on the previous slide, also lies in the conflict and imbalances between various players and their requirements, which is despite the huge dependency that they have on each other. It could be conflict between seamless customer experience and device function, security or compliance, functionality or security, and how can we forget hacker and defender, with each one trying to imbalance the other and overtake. The impact of this vulnerabilities, chaos in the system, failure in payments, and so on. Now, let us look at some day to day scenarios where, despite dependencies, there are conflicts and imbalances, and how we can address them.
Let me get started with a typical scenario where functionality overrides security for convenience. All of us know about the captcha control. You might have experienced while logging in certain public facing services that you are required to input captcha. What is the purpose of this captcha control? It is to reduce the automatically scripted malicious traffic compromising the application's availability and functionality. However, in real life scenarios, since it is perceived that customer is the king and requires a seamless experience, the application developers eliminate this captcha feature. This allows the hackers to run their automated script, flooding the application with several requests, which results in denial of services or application is compromised. So then how can we fix this lopsided technology? We can strike a balance between developer, customer, tech, and security by not asking customer to input captcha for the first time. The captcha option would appear from the second attempt when the first attempt was invalid.
See, not putting captcha could still be an intentional decision, but what about ignorance? The normal saying is ignorance is bliss, but the same is not true when people are involved in payments. Because people in payments, they handle a lot of sensitive data, which could be cardholder data, personally identifiable information, national IDs, and so on. In real life scenario also, if you see, whenever we want to block our credit cards once we lose them, we reach out to bank's call center. While verifying the card number, they would usually spell out the entire PAN, the entire card number. And this is mostly due to the lack of awareness or improper infosec training. In such a scenario, it is advisable to share only what is necessary or what is important. Say last four digits of PAN in this particular case.
While privilege sharing is good for intangible assets like data, it might not hold true for physical assets. As we know, one should not keep eggs and hammer in one box. Quick example, for merchants, the placement of critical resources is very essential. The most important device in merchant store for card payment is POS device. If the POS machine is kept at the entrance or packing area, it might lead to theft. And to strike out this imbalance, it must be ensured that POS machine is secured and monitored at all times.
So, while security keeping of devices, information, and people is a major security requirement across major global standards, but information security also runs on secrecy, which is maintained through passwords, passphrase, encryption, SSH keys, and so on. However, in real life scenarios, we see people writing down their passwords on whatever they get their hands on. And this conflict between convenience and aligning to the proper process creates an imbalance which results in disclosure of credentials. Again, this can be attributed to cutting corners or improper training or a general lack of professionalism. It can certainly be averted by conducting periodic information security trainings and awareness programs with the employees. But despite all the organizational efforts, we should keep in mind that secrecy always lies with people. Secrecy is always with one.
Thanks to those regular InfoSec trainings and awareness sessions, it has certainly helped me developing better security habits over the long run. We, as IT teams and security auditors, would have faced situation asking for quick compliance for businesses or the applications to go live or to save this license before it gets revoked. Questions like how quickly can we get certified? Can we get certificate as of yesterday? If not, in at least couple of days. These perceived business needs create conflict and might lead to overlooking of compliance requirements. Hence, due diligence and discharge of onerous responsibilities is required. With people being heavily involved in payments, each one must understand their role and responsibilities, discharge them properly. Else, there will be a vacuum in the ecosystem, resulting in insecurity and non functionality. Hence, we should not cut corners in achieving compliance or race mindlessly without due diligence.
Yes, due diligence is really crucial and can be implemented easily in an in scope environment. But what about out of scope? Should due diligence be maintained in an out of scope environment as well? If you see the typical enterprise, there are multiple networks. As you can see on the slide, it could be because of the use of home, cloud networks, and interconnections. For all these to function and be secure, we need to take a holistic view and cannot ignore outside network because out of scope is certainly not a out of secure. We cannot ignore work from home network because it can affect cloud and on-prem networks. Same applies to third parties as well. Now, all the people working in these networks must work in tandem to avoid conflicts and imbalances.
So, with work from home and other evolving processes technologies, there are new vulnerabilities which are appearing and resulting in zero-day threats. If businesses delay or fail to update their technologies, an imbalance is created. Similarly, regulators need to frequently update their standards, regulations to keep pace with the tech race. PCI DSS gets updated regularly to accommodate evolving payment card ecosystem and industry needs. If not version updates, we have timely amendments, FAQs, etc. added to the standards like ISO, GDPR, NIST, Privacy Acts, etc. Not only that, we also have certs in each country which communicates the patch updates for public entities.
Now, like we have seen in all the previous scenarios, some of the common cause of vulnerabilities happen to be due to loose configurations or lethargic implementations. Convenient shortcuts chosen over the set processes in technology, and many others that make people reckless. The conflict and imbalances, as we have seen in the previous slides, are required to be addressed through better security controls. First, people need to raise their level and follow standard regulations such as PCI, ISO, NIST in its true spirit to avoid and uh, the conflict and strike a balance. But as the future unfolds, maybe we have to look at upgrading the security controls, which should not be limited to, but definitely include periodic monitoring and reviews, frequently apprising people on the threat landscape, mandatory compliance, and wherever required, keeping business objectives in line with security and convenience.
Today, it will not be possible to identify all the next evolutions and associated vulnerabilities, which are going to impact the payment ecosystem. The more important, the people component. This will certainly not allow us to sleep in the night until this is addressed. We at Crossbow Labs are making a small effort to ensure people in our client organization are on the top of their security game. People must emerge as victors at all times. With this, we would like to thank PCI Council for this wonderful opportunity. We invite you to go live with InfoSec people at Crossbow Labs who are building cybersecurity landscapes. You can reach out to us on explore@crossbowlabs.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratik, Nivedita. Well, that brings us to a close of this year's Asia Pacific event. I hope you found the information shared in the various sessions useful, educational, and also inspiring. Well, unfortunately, we still can't be in person for this year's event. However, 2023, fingers crossed. I hope to meet all of you in person, and I hope you will join us at the event to reconnect then. Thank you again so much to all of the speakers for spending their time, as well as to all of you for watching the various sessions. Thank you for helping to secure the payment ecosystem as we secure payment data globally. Goodbye.